On the 2nd of December 2015, Syed Rizwan Farook and his wife killed 14 people and injured 22 others in the San Bernardino shooting in California. This was considered to be the worst terrorist attack on US soil since 9/11, and Farook's iPhone was recovered. 2 months later, we would see one of the most fascinating scandals of our time unfold regarding the battle between the FBI and Apple to unlock this phone. In this presentation, we'll look at the key facts of the case, who said what, and why. We'll also present 3 frameworks for the life cycle of a scandal and offer some reflections at the end. We're going to be really cynical here and play devil's advocate in regards to the motivations of those involved. We want to get a deeper understanding of the way organisations and individuals shape how scandals develop. Let's start with the timeline of what happened. We've got the shooting itself in December 2015. Then in February 2016, Apple are ordered to help the FBI unlock the phone. Tim Cook, Apple's CEO, makes a strong statement saying that they'll fight it. Next, the Department of Justice goes back to court with a stronger attempt to force Apple to cooperate. In March, both the FBI and Apple testify, going toe-to-toe about why the phone should or should not be unlocked. Then, in an interesting twist, a third party shows the FBI how to hack the phone, causing the Justice Department to first postpone the order against Apple, and then, after the FBI broke into the phone, request it to be withdrawn altogether. This doesn't tell the whole story, however. Let's take a quick look at what else was said over the duration. We can see a flurry of activity at the start when the scandal breaks. As things mature, there are less sound bites from those who seek to use it for their own gain. There are some headline-grabbing quotes here. Tim Cook saying what the FBI were asking them to do was the software equivalent of cancer. James Comey, the FBI director, saying, "We can't look the survivors in the eye or ourselves in the mirror if we don't follow this lead." Donald Trump, "Boycott Apple." And Edward Snowden, the most important tech case in a decade. One might think those involved were just either pro-Apple or pro-FBI, but it's not as simple as that. We've got Apple and the FBI here, then the Silicon Valley tech companies, Google, Facebook, Twitter, and industry groups those firms are part of. There are companies who do contract work for the FBI, and both current and former US officials. Then we've more ethical groups like the UN, Amnesty International, or the American Civil Liberties Union. Left-wing political commentators spoke about it too, like the Young Turks, plus various individuals, and the media themselves offered commentary as well. Let's look at examples of how each group used the scandal for their own purposes, starting with Apple. We can see the strong language used, dangerous precedents, threatening civil liberties, because at the heart of what Apple offer is privacy. They designed their phones so that no one apart from the owner can unlock them. US citizens worry about their constitutional rights, freedom of speech, and Apple played that card big time. They argued that complying with the court order would be violating their constitutional rights. Most of Apple's revenue comes from outside the US, and their second largest market is China. So there is no way Tim Cook wants to make customers outside the States think Apple would cooperate with their governments to damage people's privacy. The FBI want to fight against terror and beat ISIS. They knew Apple had big hitters in the personal privacy and constitutional rights angles. So by using emotive words like victims, justice, and talking about looking at survivors in the eye, they cranked up the emotion, defending their magnificent nation and rallying the American public in order to pile pressure on Apple. The FBI needed to try to win this badly. Not getting Apple to comply or not getting the information could have had serious repercussions. As it turns out, they got the data without Apple's help. It could be said they were overstating their case just to make a point, and the same criticism could be leveled at Apple. In the beginning, the reaction from the other tech companies was a bit quiet. Maybe they didn't want to harm government sales. Zuckerberg, for example, was very diplomatic. These firms, and they like to think their customers, have a new age libertarian streak. A lot of them filed amicus briefs, which were legal papers supporting Apple. Again, they know their customers value privacy very highly and want to keep them on side. Of course, they don't want to fall out with Apple as their products have to run on Apple devices. And remember, overseas perception is important. These firms do not want to be seen to be backing US intelligence services. There are industry trade groups that represent the largest tech companies, including Apple, Google, Microsoft, and others. These trade groups have no doubt worked hard to get them to sign up, a PR masterstroke, and they wanted to keep it that way. Who knows, maybe these trade groups are somehow part funded by their member companies too. There are tech firms that work for the Department of Justice, and it was obviously in their interest to apply pressure on Apple so those lucrative contracts are more likely to be renewed. They threw down the gauntlet too, saying, "Oh, it's so easy, it should only take you an hour or two. If we can do it, then the mighty Apple can do it." Current and former US officials had to be seen to back the FBI as well. For starters, the government is paying for their picket fence in the Chevy in their driveway. They tried to keep the pressure on Apple with a mixture of facts and box office rhetoric like, "We're at war." President Obama at South by Southwest tried to be balanced and not stoke the fires. Of course, he wants his time in office to be looked back on in the best possible light. Apple's plight resonated with campaign groups. However, one wonders who makes up the memberships of the freedom fighters like Don't Break Our Phones and Fight for the Future. Sure, many could be law-abiding citizens, but what about the ones that are so anti-government they might be tempted by criminality? For them, the more distance they can put between their iPhone and the FBI, the better. Left-wing commentators want to be relevant, appeal to millennials, generate ad revenue from YouTube, or be booked for guest appearances. The definition of a young Turk is a young person who rebels against authority or societal expectations, anti-government in other words. So they need to be on point with their messages or risk criticism. And the individual motivations, Donald Trump, this guy is a presidential candidate looking for votes and courts controversy. Snowden was the NSA contractor who fled the US after whistleblowing. If he's ever to return, he'll want a fair trial and need as much support as possible. Snowden's Twitter profile reads, "I used to work for the government, now I work for the public." So he's after a new career as a global advocate for free speech. John McAfee of McAfee Antivirus fame was a presidential candidate too via the Libertarian Party and insisted it was trivial to hack the phone. He's something of a celebrity in tech circles and undoubtedly wanted to rack up votes. Stephen Larson used to be a judge, but said himself he went private to earn more money. He's representing the San Bernardino victims for free, though if he wins, hey, he could charge a high fee in future. For decades, Microsoft have been competing with Apple, so Bill Gates wanted to gently turn the screw on them, but not too much, as he didn't want to be viewed as siding with the FBI. A quick mention for conspiracy theorists too, saying Apple hacked the phone anyway and kept it between them and the FBI. Those guys, well, they're hoping for a spot feature on TV someday. Lastly, the media themselves. I don't know all their political viewpoints, but I would assert if you studied trends over the past decade, you'd see them taking different angles on what happens in the US. The Financial Times were particularly scathing in this instance, and it would be interesting to see how the New York Times and Washington Post reported the scandal. Sensational, exclusive opinion polls could be biased, and with most of the US media being for profit, they need to keep people watching TV and buying papers. So they'll say whatever they need to. We can consider three relevant frameworks when studying the life cycle of this scandal. Firstly, from Register and Larkin. Secondly, Madeline Drohan. And thirdly, Anthony Downs from the 1970s. If we look at the stages they outline in each, we can see they align closely with what happened. There was an early stage when the news first broke. Then the public's attention was focused through all the comments from various quarters. People were calling for Apple to comply or be punished. Heavy hit after heavy hit was traded. Then, the FBI broke into the phone without Apple's help, and the dust settled. This scandal is dormant, but has not disappeared, where does it end? Say Apple builds a phone that is totally unhackable. Will the US government try and make that illegal? Surely in some circumstances, security services have to be able to look at an individual's data. Should there be a right to absolute privacy? We should put ourselves in the position of the parents, relatives and friends of those who have been killed in terrorist attacks. Then perhaps the question becomes rhetorical. Thanks for watching. See you next time.